class. Hello class. So let's continue from discussion with files. So in the last class we had spoken about the importance of why files is needed in operating system and what a file is. We had spoken about the various types of files, okay, and the different structure of a file. So now we'll be talking about how files are being accessed, or what are the different methods being employed in the operating system for accessing files. And we'll be looking at file operations and other features connected with files. So when it comes to accessing of the files, there are many methods being employed by different operating system. Okay, so the first method of accessing a file is sequential access. By this it means that when a file is being read, okay, it means that basically the file are being read one record at a time from the beginning, or it could be reading one bytes or different bytes at a time from the beginning. Okay, and in a sequential access you cannot jump around. That means that suppose if there are you can say 6 records, okay, in a particular file, if I want to reach, or if I want to read record number 3, I have to first of all read record 1 followed by record 2 before arriving at record 3. So that means that I cannot simply jump directly to record number 3. Okay, so you have to either perform rewind or backup until you reach to that particular record that you will read. Now this particular method of accessing a file is convenient, especially with the file medium which are in the form of magnetic tape. Okay. Then another method is random access, wherein bytes of data stored in that file or records of data stored in that file are being read in any order, and these are very essential for a database systems. Okay. Now when reading happen, it can be by moving the file pointer or the file marker to that specific location that you want to start reading, and then perform the reading process, or you simply read and then move the file marker. Okay. Now the two methods are used for specifying where to start reading. In the first method, which is the sequential access, every read operation gives first the position in the file to start reading at. In the second, a special operation called seek is used to provide the current position from where you would like to read the content of the file. Now after the seek has been performed, the file can then be read sequentially from the current position that is being defined. Now in older mainframe operating system, files are being classified either as sequential or random access at the time of their creation, but for modern operating system it does not make any distinction. Almost all the files are automatically random access. Now connected with files, there are many attributes that are associated with it. One attribute is what kind of protection mechanism is used so that it can determine who can access the file and in what way. Then you have password attribute, where you can set a password attribute before anyone could access a file. He or she has to provide the password to open and access the file. And then you have the creator attribute, which simply give us the identity of the person who created the file, the user who has created the file. Then owner, who is the current owner. Then read only flag, for which 0 means read or write and 1 is for read only. Then hidden flag, which indicates whether it's a hidden file or not, where 0 is for normal and 1 which does not appear in the listings. That means that when you look in the Windows Explorer, you'll not be able to see the file. And system flag, which indicates whether it's a normal file or regular files or a system file, 0 for normal files and 1 for system file. Then archive flag, which means that whether the file has been backed up or it needs to be backed up. Okay, so it has 0 for not backed up and 1 for 0 has 0 for which indicates that it has been backed up, and 1 says that it needs to be backed up. Then whether it's an ASCII file or binary file, okay, so 0 for ASCII file and 1 for binary file. And random access flag, which says 0 for sequential access only and 1 is for random access. Okay, temporary flag, which is 0 for normal and 1 for delete file on process exit. That means that the file will be deleted on as soon as the application which opens this file has exited. Then lock flags, which says that it is 0 for unlock and non-zero for lock. Then record length, which simply tells us the number of bytes in record or number of bytes of that file. Key position, which talks about the offset of the key within each record if it is going to be sequential access. Key length, which talks about the number of bytes in the key field. The creation time, which says about the date and time the file was created. Time of last access, which indicates the date and time the file was last accessed. Then time of last change, it talks about the date and time the file has last changed. Then current size, which talks about the number of bytes in the file, and maximum size is the number of bytes the file may grow to. Okay. Now attributes is simply just to give us the characteristics of the file. Okay. Now every file will, as you have seen, it has a file name and its data. In addition, all other almost all operating systems associate other information with each file, like the date and time file was created, file size. Okay. And usually we call these extra items as file attributes. Now the first 4 attributes relate to the file protection, tell who may access it and who may not. Okay, some system the user present a password to access the file, in which case the password must be one of the attributes. And then the flags are bits or short fields that control or enable some specific property, like archive flag is a bit that keeps track whether the file is being backed up. Okay, and the backup program will clear it, and the open system set it whenever a file is changed. Okay. Then when you are going to work with files, okay, there are many operations you can perform on those files. One of them is, of course, you have to create a file first of all. Okay, and then after creating, then you can then perform the other operations, like where you can delete the file, you can open the file, you can close the file, read the content of the file, write the content of the file, or append into the file, or seek, so you can move to a specific location before you can do certain operations like reading or writing. Then get attribute is to just get the details of the attributes of the files. Set is to set attributes of the file, and reading the files. Okay, so this is about the different operations you can perform with connected with files. Okay. Now seek is nothing but method to specify from where you would like to take the data. And one common approach is to use a system call seek that repositions the file pointer to a specific place in the file. After this is completed, data can be read from or written to that position. Okay. Then you have get attributes, which read the file attributes. Then set attributes, which allows us to change the attributes of a file after it has been created. And rename is usually used to rename. And all these operations, okay, knowingly and unknowingly, okay, for all of you who have been working in your Windows operating system, you have been doing all these different operations. Okay. Now an example of how file system calls are useful, okay, in doing these different operations on file is based on this example. Let us say we examine a Unix program which copies one file from another. Okay. Now this is the source code here. So here, okay, it will perform that purpose of reading the content and copying it to the content. Okay. Now in this program, okay, the program has minimal functionality and was error reporting, but it will give you a reasonable idea of how system call related to files work. Okay. Now let us say you have a program called copy file, which can be called from command line as follows: copy file abc.xyz. This simply says that you're going to copy the content of file abc to xyz. Now if file exists xyz, it will be overwritten, otherwise it will be created. Now the program must be called with exactly 2 arguments, both legal file names. Okay, so this part is going to do that part. It will check whether the number of files, number of arguments in command line are 3. One is copy, the first argument is copy file, second argument is the source file, and the third argument is the destination file. Now the 4 hash statements here, if you're going to see this one, okay, sorry, okay, you're going to see this one here. Okay, these header files, These are simply used to make the program conformant to the relevant international standards when it comes to running command line execution. Now the next line is a function prototype main. Okay, now the first hash defined statement simply tell us the buffer size where the content of the file that will be storing, okay, before copying from the source to the destination is going to be placed first. Okay, the second hash defined simply says who can access the output file. Okay, who can access the output file. Okay, now the main program is called main. It has two arguments, arc and argv. Now the first one tells us how many strings were present on the command line, okay, and that would be 3. Okay, and the second is nothing but an array of pointers where, okay, the values for first argument is copy file, second argument is the source file, and the third argument is the destination file. Now 5 variables are declared. The first two, infd and outofd, will hold the file descriptor representing the two files. One is the source file and the other is the destination file. Okay, and small integers will be returned whenever these files have been opened successfully. The next two are rd count and wt count. These are usually talking about the read and write system call respectively that will be copying the bytes of data from the source file to the destination file. So read count here will be taking the number of bytes that will be read from the infd, and wt will be the number of bytes that will be written inside outofd. Okay, and the last one, buffer, is the buffer that will hold the data, okay, being read and supply the data to be written. So this buffer will be storing the values or the bytes of information where rd count will be taking out, okay, from and sending it to wt count. Okay, now the first actual statement checks the argument to see if it's 3. If not, it will exit from the program. Any status code other than 0 means that the error has occurred. Now when we try to open the source file and create the destination file, okay, the following operation will happen. It will check that whether the source file is opened successfully, and it will assign a small integer value to infd. Now subsequent call must include this integer so the system knows which file it wants. Similarly, if the destination file is successfully created, then outofd will be assigned an integer value to identify it. Now if open or create fails, the file descriptor will be set to -1 and the program exit. Next thing that will happen is the copying of the content. So the copying of the content will happen by reading 4 KB at a time, 4 KB, okay, because the output mode is buffer size 4096. So this means that, okay, when the file is being read from the source file, only 4 KB at a time will be read and will be stored inside this variable called buffer. Okay, the variable called buffer. Okay, now so the reading will happen, okay, and this will occur by running the read procedure call, which will call upon the read system call. Now the first parameter will identify the source file, the second is this buffer, and the third will tell you how many bytes. So the number of bytes that will be read is 4 KB and will be stored inside the buffer, and from which file you're reading is from the first file. Okay, now when n of file is reached will be 0. Now if rd count is 0 or negative, the copying cannot continue because almost all the content has been read. Okay, so the break statement is executed to terminate the loop. The call to write the output buffer will be indicated by this system call called write, when these 3 arguments will be required. First parameter is the destination file identifier, then second is the buffer from where you will pick up those read information to be stored, okay, and how many bytes at a time. Now here you have to know that the byte count is the number of bytes actually read and not the buffer size. Okay, now when the entire file has been processed, then first call beyond the end of the file will return 0 to the read count, which will then exit the loop. At this point, the files will then be closed with a status indicating normal termination. Okay, and this is the source code of how that entire process will happen. Okay, so these are the different other features connected with files. One is with regards to, you know, the method of accessing files, then followed by attributes and the different operations we can perform on a file. Okay, if I want to demonstrate these things connected with files in Windows, okay, it's very simple. All we have to do is open the Windows Explorer, Okay, and we go to a specific drive where the files to be created. And what would you do is that in a free vacant area, you'll right click and choose new. Then we have these different files, so I select text document, then I name the file test data. Okay, now when I create here, the create system call operation will be called upon. Now this file is empty, so what I'll do, I'll open it. So as soon as I open, blank text documents open, and then we type some content. Now this is what I'm writing. Okay, now to save this file, I'll simply go file, save, and then if you want to close this file, I then click on close. Now if I want to read the file again, I double click, then I'm seeing the content of the file. Now into this file you can append. To append means towards the end of the last content, last line of the content of the file, I bring the cursor of it and press enter key, and then I start typing. So this is how I append the content. Then I again save this file. Okay, then the prompt will come, you want to save. Now if I want to know the attributes of the file, if you're going to see here in this Windows Explorer, you see the information about the file. So here it shows us the date in which the file was modified, then what type of file it is, then its size is 1 KB. If I want to know some more, I just simply right click here on the title bar, and you see here when was the file created, and immediately shows us at what time it was created, what time it was modified, any of those other features like who's the author. Okay, so there's no specific author, then what is the title. Okay, so it has all those features. If I want to know some more features, I simply select this file, right click, and I go to properties, and there you have all these, like what type of file it is, and the size of it, what is the size on this, and how much, is the total size of the file, then when was it created, modified, access. Then you can mark it to be read only, hidden. Then you have all those other features where it can be compressed and all these things. So this is how you find out the attributes. Okay, and then the operations that you've seen just now. Other operations you can perform on this file is this one. You can rename, right? You can cut, copy, all those things. Okay, so these are the different operations you can perform with the file. So this is the discussion that I want to deliver to you when connected to files. Okay, so thank you.